Welcome back to Whodunit at the Winery. And as I promised, this video I am going to read you chapter 1. So my gaze is going to be down here. I have to read. I cannot read while I'm looking at the camera. So you will have to excuse me for that. But let's dive in and let's read chapter 1. Chapter 1 of Whodunit at the Winery. Do I know you? Have we met before? I turned to the kid behind the counter in the ice cream shop, Sweet Scoops, a charming store with pink painted walls and a ceiling border of smiling ice cream cones. I don't think so, I said, glancing over at my boyfriend Jordan, who was busy studying the candy display. This is my first time in town. He wasn't a kid, but a young man. Sitting firmly in my mid-50s and quickly creeping toward 60, everyone under the age of 30 resembled a child to me. Narrowing his gaze, he ran a hand through his mop of brown hair. No, I know you from somewhere. I'm not sure where, but I'll figure it out. He studied the phone in his hand. A quick peek revealed he was scrolling Instagram. With a shrug, I continued my internal debate. What type of ice cream cone did I want? Chocolate chip? Peanut butter and chocolate? Both? People thinking they knew me happened quite frequently. You look like that one actress, he said. I glanced up and noted his name tag read Milo. Andy McDowell? I smiled. With my curly black and gray hair, I'd been compared to her throughout my career. No, he said, shaking his head. Then he snapped his fingers. That one actress that was on the soap opera. What was her name? The character was Cassie. The statement caught Jordan's attention, and he hurried over to my side. It hadn't been that long since I'd fallen from the Hollywood elite, and I'd been terrified anyone would recognize me. In fact, I'd left Hollywood and ended up in Haywood, Arizona, a small town in the Arizona mountains. I dropped my screen name, Samantha Rathbone, and went by Sam Jones. I'd gone from living a life of ritzy parties, living in a multi-million-dollar mansion and driving fancy cars, to living in a one-bedroom apartment above a herbal apothecary. After the shock wore off, my life had changed for the better. Except you look older than she did, Milo continued. Yes, I heard that a lot as well. While in Hollywood and working on my show, as the years turned, my producer had insisted I pump my face full of Botox and fillers. Over the years, I'd let go of that practice, and now I age naturally. Sometimes I didn't like what I saw in the mirror, but since I'd left Hollywood, I didn't have much time to obsess over my looks. I pondered whether to admit that I indeed was a famous Samantha Rathbone, or just let him think I resembled her. I decided to order my ice cream cone instead. I'll have the peanut butter and chocolate on a waffle cone, please, I said. Do you want sprinkles? No, thank you, just the ice cream. That is great. I turned to my boyfriend. What are you having? I'm not sure, he said, but whatever I get, I'm having sprinkles. He winked, reminded me a lot of George Clooney with his salt and pepper hair, defined jawline, and twinkling eyes. While Milo scooped my sweet treat... While Milo scooped my sweet treat, he said, I was dating this girl for a while, and she loved that soap opera. She used to record it every day and then watched it after work. She was obsessed with that Cassie on the show. He shook his head. That character was a murderer, but she always said that Cassie only killed when someone messed with her or they were doing something to someone she cared about. And she got away with it all of the time. He wasn't wrong. My character had been a truly horrible person, but she did only kill when she felt someone had been unjust to her or those in her inner circle. The amount of fan mail I received had surprised me, but the public loved Cassie. I'd probably still be playing her today if my husband hadn't stolen money from the Hollywood elite and then gotten himself murdered for it. The awful situation had led me to being blacklisted, fired from my job, and me leaving Hollywood. Well, that's the thing about television, I said. It doesn't really matter. It doesn't really mirror real life. True that, Milo said. He stared at me just a beat too long, and I realized he was still trying to figure out if I was really who he thought, except older. Yeah, my girlfriend loved that show. She said Cassie changed her life, and she stopped watching it when Cassie wasn't on it any longer. Good. Not that I'd ever go back to Hollywood even if they begged me, but I relished the thought of the ratings plummeting because I was no longer on the show. "What's she watching now?" I asked, making conversation. "When she broke up with me, she was watching reruns of that stupid show. She ruined my life." He handed me the cone, deep sadness radiating from his gaze, and then glanced at Jordan. "Do you want something?" Poor Milo. He seemed heartbroken over the girlfriend moving on. It was such a shame. As Jordan placed his order, a scoop of chocolate and a scoop of vanilla with sprinkles, I turned to stare out the window of Sweet Scoops in the little town of Cottonwood, Colorado, and enjoy my treat. Nestled at the base of the Rocky Mountains, Cottonwood could be described as quaint. It had once been a mining town, but was now a tourist attraction. The main street was only about a mile long, but it was filled with antique stores, wineries, and restaurants, and a lot of tourists frequenting them all. My former life as a Hollywood actress had taken me all over the world: Paris, London, Dubai. I'd been on African safaris, skied the Swiss Alps, and seen the northern lights in Iceland. But I never experienced the United States between California and New York, and that's what Jordan and I had decided to do. I wanted to see new things, meet different people, and have real American experiences. That didn't mean we wouldn't see the beaches of Mexico or walk the streets of Malta during our travels, but I was excited for the plans we had in the U.S. We'd arrived in Cottonwood the private day and had visited 2 wineries, then done a little shopping. I made a mental note to visit a bookstore I'd seen, but we hadn't had time to go into quite yet. After our ice cream cone, we were headed to our 3rd winery, the one I found most interesting. It was owned by the lead singer of a popular death metal band, and I found the odd dichotomy of a metalhead making fine wine intriguing. It was my understanding that when the band was on tour, the owner spent a lot of time at his winery, and I hoped to meet him. "Ready to go, Sam?" Jordan asked. "I knew it," Milo shouted, slapping his hands against the top of the ice cream display case. "I knew it was you. You're Samantha Rathbone." Turning to Jordan, I shot him a glare. Then I smiled at Milo. "You got me." His grin slowly faded. "Why would you lie to me like that?" "I didn't lie to you," I said. "You didn't tell me who you were," he shouted. I took a step away from the counter, shocked by his outburst. He pulled his hair through his hands and stared at me. "Do you know how many episodes of that crazy soap opera I had to watch? She would make me sit next to her every single night, and we couldn't even consider another show until she finished it. And then she made me watch the reruns after you left the show, over and over. Samantha Rathbone, the character Cassie. Samantha, Cassie, Samantha, Cassie." He threw his head back and screamed. "Listen, buddy," Jordan said, stepping between me and the counter. He'd been a cop for many years before retiring, and he'd never lose his protective instinct where I was concerned. After fending for myself for most of my life, I found it endearing and appreciated it. It's not a big deal. Now you know she's Samantha Rathbone. Lying would have meant her saying she was something else. She didn't do that. She simply didn't confirm your suspicions, but I wouldn't have either with a comment on her appearance. He fished out his wallet from the back pocket. "Instead of having a fit, why don't you tell me how much I owe you?" Milo narrowed his gaze at me and told Jordan the total. Jordan threw a few bills on the counter. "Keep the change, Milo, and have a nice day." He eyed him warily out over his shoulder as we walked out the door. "Nice job blowing my cover by saying my name," I said once we were outside. Jordan held the door for a woman with black hair and grinned before answering. Once she was inside, he said, "Yeah, that was a rookie mistake." He shook his head. "I really messed up. Sorry about that." I linked my free arm with his. "Why do you think he got so upset?" "His reaction was a little over the top," Jordan muttered. "The yelling and hitting the display case, unbelievable. It was like someone tried to hand him a fake $100 bill or lied to him about the moon existing. If that's his default personality, I guess we know why his girlfriend broke up with him." I stopped in front of the store featuring kitchen items aptly named Cozy Kitchen Cookery. The hand towels caught my attention. "Mi casa es su casa, but mi taco es mi taco," one of them read, and I burst out laughing. The towels translated to, "My house is your house, but my taco is my taco." Jordan chuckled next to me. You don't like to share your tacos? Not in the least bit, I said, licking my ice cream. Me neither. Tacos are to be distributed once they sit on a plate. Tacos are not to be distributed once they sit on a plate in front of me. I gave him a quick kiss. Another thing we agree on. As we moseyed down the sidewalk, I quickly forgot Milo and concentrated on Jordan, the man who I'd fallen deeply in love with. The fall sun hung low in the sky while the chilled mountain air cleared my head and gently caressed my skin. We laughed and talked while window shopping until we finished our ice cream. Let's go to the bookstore, I said, pointing across the street to Books in the Nook. Jordan pulled out his phone and glanced at it. Our wine tour starts soon. How long do you think you'll be? I sighed, irritated that once again time had thwarted my visit, just as it had the previous day. Probably too long. We don't want to be late for the tour, but we'll go after, okay? He nodded, and we headed back up the street towards the winery. Not only was it the owner unique, but so was the design. The large wooden building sat on top of a hill covered in grapevines. To reach the winery, we had to take a tram or the stairs. What do you think? Jordan asked. We could take the stairs and make a dent in our calorie intake for the day, or should we take the tram? Glancing at the long, steep staircase, it didn't take me long to decide. I think between breakfast, lunch, and our ice cream cone and the wine we're about to drink, we'd have to run these stairs 400 times in order to get into the calorie deficit. So I'm voting for the tram. Good thinking, Jordan said. Wine doesn't pair well with cardio anyway. So that is chapter 1 of Whodunit in the Winery. I hope you've enjoyed this little series telling you about the book and giving you all of the background information on it. And I hope you will join me for our next series, which will be Homicide at the Hotel, where I will also share some backstory, inside scoops, and how I came up with this murder. It's a really cool story, so make sure you check it out. Thanks again.